Hello, and welcome to the Parole Decision Guideline Tool Scoring Training. This will be a brief walkthrough of how to fill out the instrument. Remember, this tool is best completed as a consensus when the caseworker, CTL, and unit or housing manager are all together. The CTL must sign off on the scoring sheet. To begin, locate the Parole Decision Guideline Tool Scoring Sheet on the Intranet under the Reentry CRC and PDGT section. Make sure to download it to your desktop each time. Let's go ahead and open it up. At the top of the form, make sure to type in the inmate's name and number, double checking to make sure everything is correct. The first section we will complete is the discipline section. I like to have WICUS pulled up to make sure I have everything correct. Let's go through the scoring guide. Is the inmate discipline-free for the past 3 years? The answer is no. Has the inmate had 1 to 2 generals in the past 36 months? Well, it looks like inmate Vader has had a couple generals in the past couple months. However, he's also had a major, as you can see here. So let's move on to the next scoring guide. Has the inmate had a major in the past 12 months? That answer is yes. The final 2 scoring questions ask about predatory charges. As you can see in WICUS, inmate Vader has not been charged with any predators. So our final answer is 6, as he has had a major in the past 12 months. Let's go ahead and place a 6 in the appropriate box. Let's now move on to the case plan progress of inmate Vader. I like to have Compass pulled up so we can go over the assessments in his bar chart. Most likely when you're filling this form out, it will be an inmate whose case you are most likely familiar with, and some of these things will be easier to identify. The main things to look at initially are substance abuse needs, sex offender needs, cognitive needs, education, and any other needs that should be addressed. Let's look at this bar chart more clearly. As you can see, inmate Vader's substance abuse needs are unlikely, so he will score a 0 in this section as he does not need to be addressing this. Inmate Vader is not a sex offender, so he will score another 0 in this section. Inmate Vader scores an 8 for his cognitive behavioral need, as you can see here. So we will need to check his progress on addressing this need to find the score for the Parole Decision Guideline tool. Inmate Vader scores unlikely for education, so he's most likely not addressing anything and will score 0 in this section. Inmate Vader does have a few other highly probable needs, and it's good to put these on a little note paper to keep for when you go back to the Parole Decision Guideline tool. Those would be criminal associates, social isolation, criminal personality, criminal thinking, anger, social failure, residential instability, and social environment. As his caseworker, we should know whether he is addressing any of these and his progress, but we can also go back and read through WICAS. Let's go back to the Parole Decision Guideline tool to enter the scores. For substance abuse, as we noted before, we will go ahead and put a 0, as this does not apply to inmate Vader. However, if you have an inmate who needs to be addressing this area, but you are unsure, make sure to consult with a substance abuse treatment provider to determine the assessed level of need and status of program participation. For sex offender needs, we will place a 0, since it does not apply to inmate Vader. As we discussed above, or before, inmate Vader does have some cognitive needs which needs to be addressed. So let's go look at WICAS. To the programming section. Be a good place to start. It does look like he is enrolled in T4C. So let's go back to the Parole Decision Guideline tool, and we can score inmate Vader a 1 because he is addressing his cognitive needs. Under education, we can score him a 0 since it does not apply to him according to his COMPASS assessment. In other probable and highly probable needs section, we can actually score inmate Vader a 2. This is because he is not addressing any other areas. The only program he was enrolled in was T4C, and if you remember from his bar chart, he had several other highly probable needs which needs to be addressed. This section will apply to each inmate differently, so make sure to research your inmate and the case plan goals and progress. We will now move on to placing an X in the appropriate boxes. If you remember from above, we recognize social isolation and anger as inmates Vader's probable and highly probable needs. Alright, great job. As you can see, so far it's pretty straightforward and easy to enter information. Let's move on to the other side of the tool. Under the Risk Scores section, let's refer back to COMPASS and the bar chart. Violent recidivism is a 4, and general recidivism is a 5. Going back to the Parole Decision Guideline tool, we can enter the appropriate scores. Since we are basing this information off of the core COMPASS, we need to make sure to place an NA in the boxes not utilized. As they are already there, we'll just leave those. And since inmate Vader is not a sex offender, we will not have a static or stable score to enter. So we will also place NA in those boxes. Double check to make sure all of your scores match excuse me, what you want them to state. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, click over to the Decision Guideline Report. Before looking at any of the other information, let's make sure to complete the rest of this form. At the top, we need to place the staff completing this document, the date of completion, and the institution it was completed at. As you can see, it will give you a drop-down box to complete. We can now look over the qualifications. If the answer below, title, is yes, we must answer the following clarification questions. If the answer is no, then there is nothing further we do with this form. Go ahead and save it as our saving format was stated in earlier training. So, since our answer is yes, let's go ahead and answer those clarification questions. Each question will pertain to your particular inmate. As this is inmate Vader, let's go ahead and answer those for him. Is inmate Vader an add-on for parole hearing? No. Is inmate Vader's projected minimum date more than 6 months from parole hearing? No. Is inmate Vader a detainer for ICE? No. Is inmate Vader convicted of escape on this sentence? No. Is inmate Vader's housing plan to an ACC? Let's say for this case it is. So we're going to go ahead to the yes box and select yes. And as you can see, the qualification for pre-parole has switched over to no. This means that a pre-parole investigation would not be sent to the field office. However, for this training, let's go ahead and say no for this answer. Let's continue down with the questions. Is inmate Vader's housing plan A to an out-of-state residence? No. Did inmate Vader commit an aggravated assault on this sentence? No. Does inmate Vader have a consecutive institutional sentence? No. So as you can see, our answer is yes, and this indicates the caseworker must send the CRC documents to the appropriate field office for the pre-parole investigation to begin. Remember that this process was mentioned in the CRC training we just completed. You can always refer to the CRC process for more information. The next section auto-populates a report based on scores given on the previous scoring sheet. Let's go ahead and move down to other considerations as needed. Information included in this type section can include specifics about the case that are important for the parole board to consider in making the parole decision or in setting pre- and post-release conditions. Such information could include sentence structure considerations, treatment availability in or out of the facility, detainers, interstate compact requests, other significant institutional behavior considerations, other community planning or programming, and concerns for proposed parole plan. This section should also include any explanation if needed to qualify or clarify the guideline scores based on unusual circumstances. In inmate Vader's case, this would be a good place to mention that inmate Vader has a highly probable need of anger and has not done anything to address it, and is not willing to either. It would be a good place to note that his history of violence scored at a 10 on his compass assessment, and inmate Vader's social environment is concerning if paroled to his housing plan. Make sure to save the document as discussed in the saved format section. Caseworkers can share the outcome of the tool with the offender to include if they've qualified for pre-parole investigation. However, the tool itself should not be shared with the offenders. At the parole hearing, caseworkers should comment to the board the outcome of the parole decision guideline tool if the inmate qualified for pre-parole and the field office's investigation approval or denial. We've briefly gone over completing the parole decision guideline tool. Remember, each inmate's scores will be different and need to be looked at carefully.